Hello and welcome back to the Wedding Capture Co podcast, the podcast for wedding photographers and videographers with me, Chris, and my co-host, Tom.
Hello.
In today's episode, it's another catch-up episode. It's been a while since we last spoke, and we're going to be talking about Lake Como, so the destination wedding that I did in Lake Como. We'll also have a chat about Tom's busiest week of the year, which obviously leads on to a chat about wedding fatigue and whether you should be taking jobs that aren't weddings. We're going to be talking about 2025 and whether it's going to be a difficult year for bookings, because I know it's been difficult for some people. And we're also going into trailers and teasers and previews and that kind of thing about what you should be posting on Instagram. So, and the last thing we talk about is our workshop, which is coming up on the 19th of November. It's a branding and marketing workshop for photographers and videographers. So if you haven't seen that, listen on to see what we've got to offer, and check the link in the description if you're interested in a branding and marketing workshop.
So maybe that's a really good place to start then, actually, is that we now have music.
We have music, yeah.
I feel like we've arrived. We've been doing this podcast. This is episode number 37?
Yes, I think so. Yeah,
36 or 37. That's it. It shows how obviously aware we are of where we are. But we are a number of episodes in. That's it. We're almost reaching. We're 18 months something like that into the podcast now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we finally got music.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the podcast has very much been a hands-off podcast. Even with my editing, I literally cut the beginning, cut the end. I'll do a listen through, and then it goes online. There's no editing to it whatsoever. There's not multi-cameras and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's very much been like, we put it online and we see what happens. We deliver our best content here, but it doesn't get much production. There's not much production element to it.
But I feel, again, and maybe, some may think that's maybe a lazy approach, but I think we always try and have these conversations as honestly and kind of openly as we can. And the same with our guests, that we tell guests that for the most part as well, that, the conversation that we have is the conversation that you will hear. We don't really want to chop anything out too much. We want to try and sit here and speak as freely as we can. And, kind of warts and all, like Max is upstairs today, but he normally chirps in, or something happens and you have to run off for the door. Yeah. But at least, I think a lot of people said that's the reason they like this podcast, is because it feels like you are sat around the table with us, and it has those elements to it. It's not overly produced, but I do feel that the music is a nice addition.
Yeah, you're right. I think there's podcasts out there that are heavily education you listen to, and you're getting every few minutes there's a tidbit of information you want to write down. And I feel like this is not that. This is the dinner time conversations you have at weddings with photographers and videographers. Yeah,
and for the conversation that we've had with people, with you wonderful guys that listen, is that most people do listen to it either in their car on the way to a wedding, or whilst they're editing, or in those moments where you probably are kind of alone and want something to talk back to. You're not there. I don't know. There's probably many people that sit there kind of cross-legged with their notepad, eager to kind of sit down and take lots of notes from the rubbish that rolls out of our mouths. But we're grateful for you all to be here.
Hopefully you get something out of it. Yeah.
And we'd like to know your opinions on the music as well. If you feel that our jingle is catchy and you'll be humming it in the shower, then that'd be nice to know.
Yeah, hopefully no one says they hate the music. Otherwise, that'll be my audio search back on. It's one of those things. All it had to do is be ambient and relatively catchy. So it didn't take that long to find, to be honest. But I think it just adds to we were just saying you want to sit down and turn on the podcast and know which one you've turned on straight away just by the music. Normally that's by the music, but yeah. So first thing's music, then. And
now I think we're back. Obviously, our last episode, we came off the back of a run of kind of guests and information, and then we had a really epic catch up on the eve of you going to Lake Como, didn't we, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we're out of practice because we've only had one recording session of one episode sit in a month and a half.
It's that smugness, isn't it? We went from a couple of episodes being really far ahead and not having to record, and now you can definitely tell where our busiest parts of the season have lied, in the fact that we recorded that the day before you flew to your destination, and that was a month ago?
Yeah. And then now we're trying to squeeze another episode in, because we normally do, obviously, it's no secret, we do probably 2 a day. But we just haven't been able to do it recently.
It's not happening. So, literally to the point that we are recording this on the Tuesday, as you're going to hear it today on the Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's probably the most current kind of.
But what matters is we've kept to that 2-week schedule.
Yes, we were adamant. when I was voice noting Chris at a time later that he probably didn't like me for, that I'd come off the back of a really 4 or 5 day kind of continuous run, and was like, I'm adamant I'm not being the reason that we do miss a week this week. So if we've got this kind of couple of hours that we can squeeze the recording in, we're going to make it happen. And luckily you were free at the same time, and we've managed to arrive here, and here we are.
We've managed to do it, and I think I've got a full week this week of just editing, really. So it's nice to break that, again, for us. not only is it like a platform that we can have a chat on and stuff, but also I quite like these days of just like it breaks up those long chunks of
the monotony of doing the same task.
Yeah.
I wish I had time for editing at the moment and say I've just come off the back of I think like a 5-day run. It was 3 weddings and 2 commercial jobs literally in a row. Yeah. And then I've got 2 weddings this week. I'm at an elopement tomorrow, which is like a couple of hours in Winchester. And then I've got another full day on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think about 6 meetings in the meantime as well, of a mixture of new clients and final meetings for the rest of this crazy month.
So. At this point in the season, when I see people that like you that are still that busy, I'm kind of like, that exhausts me just hearing about it.
I think it's because I haven't been up to now though. Our mind's all caught up at the end.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because I've had a little bit of a busy period as well. Like I had a double last week, but I have no pre-wedding calls left now. I have one pre-wedding call left until like end of November now, when the December ones come in. So I'm thinking like my evenings have suddenly freed up. I've got 2 weddings left for the rest of the month and only 1 in October. So I'm starting to feel like the weight is slowly lifting. Obviously, I don't want to look at the amount of weddings on my queue.
Yeah.
But in terms of like having to get out of bed and like go and show my face and be Spice Wedding Films, there's not as much of that now.
I think that kind of scale tips, doesn't it though? Because I felt like, maybe rewind to when we last recorded, August was a pretty quiet month for me with 1 or 2 weddings. And I was, if anything, in front of my editing. People were getting there, normally I'd be at that peak sort of 6-week wait time by then. And I had weddings going out pretty much a month after I'd shot them.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, this is okay. And then you were kind of, oh, I'm stressed out about this. And then now that your kind of things are starting to ease, I'm the other way where I'm literally shooting constantly, and my editing pile is growing at like an absolute rate of knots with no time to really, if I'm getting to my desk, it's literally just to get through those slew of emails that have come in the 2 or 3 days that I haven't been at my desk, and that editing pile's going nowhere. But luckily, I think it is for me, like we talked about, I think in the last episode, I referred to September as my final boss, like on that kind of like arcade game, where once I get through the end of this month, I think I have maybe 1 or 2 weddings in October, 1 in November, which is only a half day, and then 1 right before Christmas in December, which and that is me done for the year. So this is kind of that real last hurdle, and it's been a really odd one. I'm sure that most of you guys that listen have had the same thing, where September has been getting busier and busier for me as the years have gone on, because we've, it's always been that kind of, it's not going to be as hot as the summer. The weather's sometimes a little bit better. You're kind of out of the summer months of the venue, so you save some money. And I've always really enjoyed September weddings, and I would actively, tell people that kind of April, May, and September are my favourite months to shoot weddings because of the timings, the kind of the way that sunset rolls. Weather, again, you normally get a nice day without being too warm, or the rest of it.
I mean, we got married 3rd of September. And it was a lovely day. And our previous 2 days, because of COVID, were scheduled in early June, and they both rained for the whole day.
Which is quite crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
So the September day ended up being really good. So I always say to our September couples, I think you've booked like the best time. Yeah. But it hasn't really been like that.
But it's not like I came off the back of doing, I did a Wednesday, a commercial job the Thursday, weddings Friday, Saturday, and then the Sunday. I think the first time the sun shone was on the Sunday afternoon when I was stood at Goodwood Revival, kind of doing that thing there.
Yeah.
And after that, I'd had some weddings, which luckily I think I had the couples, and my couples are kind of aren't the kind of overly precious type that I think would spend too much time mourning the loss of sunshine. Yeah. They were very much adamant to roll with it. And even my Friday couple, well, I said, like, if anything, we're autumn people. Yeah. Like, we would rather it be raining than it be 30 degrees. Yeah. Like, we're much happier that it's like this than it would be overly hot. Yeah. And so it didn't kind of affect the mood of my weddings, but I still feel that it just becomes more of an effort, or you're kind of having to stay that much more optimistic and impart that kind of energy onto your couple, so that any kind of feelings they might be having about it being a really wet day are gone, because you're trying to keep that up. And
when you turn up in the morning and the couple is like, yeah, but it's raining, isn't it? You're like, oh, you excited for the day? Yeah, but it's raining. You have to kind of be like, but there'll be times it clears up, and at least it's not hot and you're uncomfortable and all this lot, and trying to
and you're thinking, if you are kind of like a big jug of enthusiasm, there's only so much of that you can pour, particularly when you're kind of doing back-to-backs as well, where in the end you just need to kind of go and run yourself under the tap and fill that up a little bit. And I think I definitely felt like that after I was really proud that I got through it. I really enjoyed the weddings that I did, and I feel like I've made some really good work at them despite the weather. But I think I'm definitely feeling that kind of fatigue now. I am feeling like it's September.
Yeah.
Like I think that that kind of spring in my step that was really there at the start of the season is starting to slow now a little bit. And
I think it's only natural. And I see a lot of photographers who will do 50 to 100 a year, and absolutely love it. And like even towards the end of the year, you're bumping into them, and they're still like, yeah, but I love my job. I don't know how, because I actively say to them that I do 30 a year roughly.
Yeah.
And I think if I did 50 or 60, I'd just break the light. I just wouldn't be able to keep that level of creativity and consistency all the way through, because now, like you say, when it's hit in September, I've put in my notes as well, I feel like I'm just filming the same wedding over and over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whereas the beginning of the year, I'm like, oh, I might do this a little bit extra, or I might change this up today, or I might do this. Like now it's like survival mode. I'm going to do what I do best. Yeah. And if I get a chance, or maybe the mental capacity to do a little bit extra, then I'll do that. But
I think it's that as well, isn't it? Is that we've both been doing this long enough now that, and it's not an excuse at all, or even saying that I'm actually doing this, but that sometimes that you, on an average day, can still make a good film.
Yeah.
But it's that thing that gets you super excited to make that like a great film.
Yeah.
And sometimes naturally, you do get weddings that just pique your interest more, or something goes on, or the weather. Like you still know that you can make a gallery which will make that client perfectly happy. You can still give them a wonderful experience on the day. Yeah. But it's just having that little zest to be, we need to do this, or that's happening a bit later on. But I'm going to stay on for that, or that kind of real drive to kind of give it that more. And sometimes for me, it's not even so much on the day. Like we spoke about this when we went to Tesco earlier to get our meal deal, is that I think once I'm there on the day, I'm really good at kind of being in the zone, as you were. And once you get there, you feed off the energy of the people and the joy of the day and the people you're working with. And being like, I'm having the best time. And I am. Like, I do still love this job, even though it's September and I'm tired. It's when you get home. And I think this back-to-back that I've just done is my first one of the year. I haven't done a double this year.
Really? And you're the one that convinced me that doubles were actually worth it.
And I actively tried to try to say, if I could only do 30 weddings in a year, I could get 15 doubles and have a lot more time off, I would have done it. But I think because this is my first one of the year, and then it ends up being, say, like a 5-day stretch, is that I just forgot how much it can take out of you.
Yeah.
And I'd leave the wedding, like walk off a dance floor, like, this is amazing, I've had a great time, pat my kit down. And it's not until I've literally like dropped my ass into the car and I've gone, hell, I'm tired. And then you look at and you go, I've got 9 o'clock start tomorrow. And you look at your watch and it's like, it's 9:45 now. By the time I drive home, I back up, I deliver previews. I'm probably not going to get into bed this side of midnight. And then I'm waking up with probably not enough sleep to then get on the road to get to that. And just kind of doing that. And for all the things that I've said, it's...
Is it because of the weather? Like, because I've found, and I don't know whether this is like every year, but I guess I kind of find it where like April, May, June is sort of like the really like high energy kind of like, I don't know, like a lot of our like portfolio material often comes from like June, July, that kind of time. Yeah. And I find August, September, August probably mainly because of the rain, to be honest. But then it starts like the energy starts to, maybe that, it's a school holidays or something, or maybe, that kind of thing. But maybe this year, because of the, like, from sort of mid-August onwards, it's kind of got a little bit sketchy, weather-wise. And are we feeling that, like, you've gone from having, those long summer days to just like a little bit of rain and things like that?
I think that's true. And I think like I've not been diagnosed with SAD or anything like that, but I definitely do feel that the weather does dictate my mood quite a lot. Yeah. If I was at a venue and you can feel that warm glow coming through the window while you're indoors, you're excited to get back outside.
But you vibe off the guests, like you said, you vibe off the couple.
Yeah, and you look out and it's like, it's a bit dreary. And you know that they're not going to be excited to get back out for it. Like, again, you've got to then pour from that cup of enthusiasm to even get a post-dinner shoot out of them because there's not a sunset. Yeah. They're looking at you going, well, that golden sunset that we hoped was not there. Do you still want to go out? And you're like, I do, come on, let's go. And I think you've got to give a lot more, haven't you, to probably get less back as well, to kind of really keep that enthusiasm going. And I know we both said it when you walked in this morning, is that I feel that switch from summer to autumn has happened so damn fast this year. Like, we've gone from it feeling like summer to now, even I feel the temperature's dropping, it's really grey. Like, I definitely feel like we're in autumn already.
It's like as soon as sort of end of August, beginning of September, like as soon as the kids went back to school or whatever, it's like someone just clicked and then it was autumn. And like it really does feel like autumn. Like I'm sat here in a really thick like overshirt. I was, say, like 3 weeks ago I was wearing shorts and t-shirt,
which is crazy. Isn't it? Yeah. And I felt that kind of shift, and I think maybe I wasn't ready for it. And I think I've got in my notes as well that aside from this weekend having the mixture of weddings and commercial jobs, I also shot a music festival on the bank holiday weekend, which I shoot every year. I'm part of the media crew for that. And for that, kind of that bank holiday is kind of the end of British summertime. And sometimes I think I find it really lovely to go and do that job because I've normally had a really busy summer of shooting weddings, and it's nice to go and do something with my camera, which is work, which is music, which I used to do a lot more of and I love. I'm working with a crew of people as well, rather than working by myself. Like to be as part of a team of 12 is something which I never experienced, and to have people which are just as excited about cameras and work and stuff as you are, I find that really rewarding.
Yeah.
But then it feels really kind of odd to kind of, like, I literally pull myself out of my wedding bubble into this kind of fast-paced bubble of a music festival
You're not
scene.
even thinking about it.
And then go, boom, you're back into your wedding bubble again.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to kind of navigate, like, kind of through the two. Even though that I'm doing essentially a very similar job, sometimes it still feels such worlds apart.
But you've mentioned in the notes about your variation, and I don't know whether we've done it on the pod or spoken about it on the podcast, but I've often tried to convince you that not doing as much corporate work is the way forward, because you could be doing a lot less work and still getting the same amount of money just by binning off a couple of corporate jobs and you know, getting another wedding or two in. But you obviously carried on doing that.
I have this year, and I think it's definitely something we spoke about, and something I think I'll probably want to review for next year, is that if I add up, I did it last year, I think after you talked about making this kind of list of joy and money and kind of in the end of kind of this journey to kind of being still fulfilled in business and in life and happiness, is that I looked at the amount of commercial invoices I had for last year and the amount of money that they brought me in against probably only having to do 2 weddings to get that same amount of work. And some of the stuff with tight deadlines, again, the rates you're getting paid for the hours that you're doing, financially it's a lot better to do the wedding work, especially when you enjoy weddings. I enjoy my commercial, but I think in say after there is having that variation sometimes. I think if you were caught up, I maybe would feel more on a treadmill if all I only ever shot was weddings, to have nothing else. So I think for me, the most mindful thing that I think I'm going to do at the end of this year is then look through those commercial jobs and go, well, which one of them, which out of all of those do really fulfill me in other ways.
Yeah, I think that's important.
And the ones that I'm literally doing because I've always worked for them and they're nice, I will probably get rid of, and probably out of the say 3 or 4 commercial clients that I've got, maybe only keep 2 of them because they're the jobs that really speak to me on a personal level or something which I would like to do. And almost you accept that the rate's not a wedding rate, but because it fulfills me in other ways, I'll keep it. And I think that's kind of the refinement.
Like your festival is because that you actually enjoy it. You enjoy music. That's kind of your thing. And like it's not like you're doing it, oh, it's another bit of income. It's another income source. It's like something which brings.
And I think for all that I've just said as well, the where it falls at the end of the year, that is a bank holiday weekend, which I know I would definitely fill with at least 1 wedding if I wasn't at the festival. So in some ways, although I'm getting paid for it, I get really cool access and get to photograph bands. I get to work, say, with 10 other photographers and videographers. So that idea of being in a team is something, that social element of that I really enjoy. I'd probably go to the festival as a punter if I wasn't working. So it's a nice way to give me a kind of barrier to go, I don't book weddings that weekend.
Yeah. It's funny you should say about like narrowing it down though, is that for those you said about the joy and income thing, for those that haven't listened to previous episodes, at the beginning of each year I write down everything that I'm doing, and you know, sort of work wise or like anything that is bringing, you know, money or some sort of like money in, and I write down how much joy it gives me out of 10, like an income out of 10, a potential income, and then like those sort of things, and rate them and try and figure out what I can, you know, do less of, what I can do more of, how I can make the things that I'm not enjoying as much more enjoyable and things like that. It's a really just silly thing, but I'm so analytics driven that I like just have to number everything.
But I find it fascinating. I think it's a really clever way of looking, because I think you can look at things, especially in hindsight, with a fondness that's not there at the time. Like to look back and go, oh, actually I quite like doing those, but then the second that client books you for a job where you have to go and do the thing, you go, why did I ever agree to this?
Exactly.
And it's harnessing some of that, isn't it? And or putting that into a task then to force you to think about those moments.
It's like YouTube, like it sounds so glamorous. Whenever I said I reviewed like camera gear, and everyone's like, oh my god, that, you know, I work with DJI and I work with Insta360 and I get sponsored, and that sounds well glamorous, but every time a job came through, I was like, oh, gotta make this video now. And so I've actually pretty much for the first time this year just done weddings, and obviously the podcast as well, but like I've really just focused on weddings. And the treadmill thing is true. Like there's been nothing that's taken me out of that, and no time where I've been, apart from having a lot more free time to be able to do personal stuff, which is great, because I'm not, you know, I've got the mindfulness of weddings are quite a strict, like pre-wedding call, wedding, edit.
They follow, the way that you book them in and you churn them out follows a very similar pattern, doesn't it? Although the days themselves have variation.
There's no like corporateness of, oh, this could go on for 6 months, or you know, I need this within the next week. Can you ditch everything you've got?
Yeah.
I've never not had any of that, and that's been amazing. But at the same time, there's been nothing like You're Victorious to take me out of it and make me forget about weddings for a few days. So I sat down last night and I was like, do you ever, said to Kate, I was like, do you ever feel like your job is all encompassing, like everything, you know? If I open my phone, it opens onto Instagram on my wedding page, and I'm seeing wedding photos and videos, which I don't like looking at. I don't like looking at other people's stuff. I don't find it that interesting to watch other people's videos and stuff. I think it's all encompassing.
And again, like we've said, I think at this time of the year, I find that sometimes I can find it, particularly if I'm tired, or again, you've had a wedding that you felt that where the weather hasn't been great, or the potential that you saw that they could have been that wasn't there because of, you know, weather or X, Y happens. There's always somebody that you're ready to open your Instagram, and I feel like the algorithm actively forces something which you probably really don't need to see at that time, like someone who's like nailing it, or had, you know, while you were holding an umbrella in sideways wind to take a couple shots, they were rocking a golden sunset on a cliff somewhere, and I feel that, you know, you can be pleased for them, but it is I think at that moment it can feel quite like, I just don't want to look at this. I just don't want to do it, because all it does is make you feel crap about about yourself. But you can't control the weather, you can't control, you know, those things. You've probably still made an amazing set of photos that your couple are going to love, so you still serviced your client with the conditions that you were given. But it is, I know what you mean, sometimes it can feel all encompassing.
And obviously comparison is the thief of joy, but like during the summer when you are really busy, and that it can be like you see other people's stuff and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, but it's like you're so into your flow by this point that you can't really change anything. And as you know, like any changes that we make will reflect in a year's time, like a lot of the time. So,
and I feel like a lot of the supplier talk that I'm having at the moment is everyone's firmly got their eyes on next year and 26 now already. Like a lot of the conversations changed from this year now to everyone's like, how are you looking for next year? Like, what do you think's going to happen? What's this? And it's almost like people are kind of starting to, although we've still probably all got like a bunch of jobs left to do, like people's focus now is into kind of far into the future already.
Definitely. I've heard some interesting stories. I've had some venues that aren't perhaps doing, I was going to kind of bring this up, but I didn't want to make it too much about next year, but I do think that next year has been tougher for a lot of people, and there are, I mean, if you listen to House Film Weddings podcast, the last 4 episodes of it has been about how tough 2025 is going to be for people. And like, I'm on track with bookings for next year. I'll put that first, but I've had probably less inquiries than I've ever had in my time doing video this year. It's probably the least inquiries I've ever had, but I'm on track for bookings. But it just feels like you're having to put more grinding to get that. I
feel like it's been, again, I feel like everybody at some point post-COVID, which again we're looking at, it's almost 5 years ago now, any sense of routine that was there before that has gone. So you can't look at anything and go, this was a normal pattern, or I should be doing this. But I still found that I did kind of have a natural routine of what I was booking in those years coming out, which this year definitely didn't happen. I got to halfway through the year and was like, I only have half the bookings at this point for next year that I've had in the previous 2 years, and had a panic about it. Oh, and then over the summer it has leveled itself out now, and I am probably, again, for where I was at this point for the last 2 years, almost there. But for, like say, for less inquiries, and inquiries coming from a much more varied level of sources. Like I seem to have, like before you could almost say I have these 3 pillars of where most of my stuff comes from, but some stuff seems to just be coming in from all sorts of weird places at the moment, and there seems to be no pattern to it at all. There's no kind of definite kind of, you can't really look at it and go, okay, well I need to push more into that and lean back on that, because someone's literally just sprinkling it from everywhere. It's not as if it's all coming from one place.
It's so sporadic, isn't it? Like I had a couple of months no inquiries, and then I had 3 bookings in like the space of like 3 weeks, and then a couple of months again with no inquiries, and now they're slowly starting to trickle in again. But it's just weird how it's coming through.
And I'm finding a lot more of kind of, there's a lot of people sowing seeds, if that makes sense. Like I've had a lot of bookings that people have inquired with me a long time ago. Like, you know, I inquired with you 6 months ago, and then we put our lives on hold. Now we get married again. Are you free? Or I had one where, you know, I had a call with a couple, heard nothing from them. 6 weeks later, they get back in touch and go, oh, the summer just happened, didn't it? And I feel like that for my work sometimes. And couples, I think, are clearly finding that too. That level of urgency now to go like, you find a venue, you book them in, you find this person. Like, there's no kind of steady journey for couples, I don't think, anymore. A lot of my couples are kind of doing things a lot more sort of ad hoc, or when they've got energy or time or whatever. And so I think we are probably going to have to get used to the fact that this job used to be a job where you could get to the end of the year with most of next year's calendar in, that we're going to become much more like other freelance are, where your work probably is there. It's just going to come a lot shorter notice.
Yeah. I feel like we're seeing a lot more now of people inquiring of us without having booked a photographer yet. And I think that's a testament to how late people are booking photographers. I'm already getting inquiries as a videographer, which is normally one of the last things, but that's after flowers and venue and photo normally. But then I'm getting like, we haven't got a photographer yet, but we're looking at a videographer. Can you recommend any photographers and stuff?
Yeah.
And that's coming through more and more and more, which makes me think that it's all being squashed into more of a last minute, like less than 12 months sort of thing.
And I think I find as well that if I looked back at the numbers from that, is the amount of bookings that I went into this year with and the amount of bookings I would have shot by the end of the year, I think this year will be the biggest difference in that number.
Okay.
Like other years, I've only picked up 4 or 5 jobs that year.
Okay,
where this year I might have picked up more than, like, that percentage is higher for sure. People that have got married short notice. Like, I've even had a couple of instances this year where people have booked me for their wedding 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. So this year,
away,
2024.
And they've not been let down.
Yeah.
They've not been let down by another photographer. They've just been, we've decided we're getting married. The venue had this day free, so we're doing it. Are you free?
Yeah.
And you've got to be more reactive. And I know I've had conversations with multiple suppliers as well, not just photographers. And I know that we've had touched on it, is that the way that my next year is looking is this is not a weekend job anymore. Yes. The rise of the midweek in 2025, I think, is going to be huge.
2/3 of our bookings for next year are midweek bookings. Like, I have 6 weekend days.
I think I'm very similar. Yeah. I think at the moment, out of the 16 or 17 bookings I think I've got, I would say probably 10 of those are midweeks.
Yeah.
And it's not Fridays either. It's Tuesdays, it's Mondays, it's Thursdays. It's not,
mine's a bit spread. Yeah.
Like, I think almost like this year I would have shot a wedding in every month of this year. Next year, I think at the moment it's shaping up that I would have shot a wedding on every day of the week.
Yeah, but is that a price thing as well? Like, I often think that the higher price you go, the sooner you get booked before the wedding, because people who have a bit of money are often planning their wedding within 12 months, and people that don't have as much money are normally the ones that book you like 2 years in advance because they're having to save for it. So is it a case of those weekend ones are going to be the ones that come in within the 7-8 months because they've got the money to do it and book the weekend?
I think it's probably a mixture of all things. Like, again, we're obviously moving up the ladder and the couples that you attract and budgets are changing, but I do wonder if some of it is that kind of element. If people just don't buy into that kind of illusion of, you pay up for a wedding, and you do, where now people are looking at it and going, well, I can have the same venue, I can eat the same menu, have the same place, but it's more expensive if I have it on a Friday as it is on a Wednesday. So why would I not go for the Wednesday? Because nothing changes. And maybe we're going to see in the end that I've already looking that, in previous years, I have maybe offered a slightly reduced rate for a midweek, only for the fact because that was to encourage midweek bookings. Yeah. But now if midweek bookings are plentiful, I don't need to offer anything to encourage them. So I would actively then level my price and go, well, I do the same work. And I wonder if in the end, if venues are going to have to get wise and almost the client's got smarter than the game. Do you know what I mean? They've realised that venue doesn't change. They don't only give you 2/3 of it if you get married on a Thursday. You still get run of the place, or you still eat the same menu if you get married on a Tuesday as you do on a Saturday. But why would you pay more money for it or do that? Because I think now that with working from home being a lot more normal, or people's work schedules being a lot more fluid than they are now, if you give people enough notice, they will get a day off to come to your wedding. It's not such an inconvenience to go, I've got to take a Tuesday off to go to this wedding. It's just much more of a thing.
You do find that the Monday and Tuesday weddings are slightly quieter still, though. I think, like you say, as they become more popular, maybe people will become more open to taking days off for Monday weddings and Tuesday weddings and things like that. But I do find that if you have a wedding on a Monday, I'm expecting it to taper off after the evening, and it generally does. For sure. And I do wonder in the end whether we'll see venues starting to offer, if that will be their compromise in the money, or they offer earlier hours, or there's somewhere in that. Because like we said, it's kind of a well-known thing, isn't it, amongst kind of photographers, you go, it's a midweek wedding, where the evening guests that arrive it's not their Saturday and they've been waiting to come to the party. They've been at work all day, run home, showered and brushed their teeth, and then get to the wedding in order so they don't miss the first dance, but they know they're still going back to work the next day. So they're not getting
getting hammered and going to get their tie around their head an hour later because they still got to be responsible enough to get up for work the next morning. And like it does, like, that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if in the end people don't mind having that quieter evening. And I've even had a couple of weddings this year where there hasn't been so much of a pressure to have, again, without sounding like a granddad, a disco in the evening.
Yeah.
They've been happy to just have a nice few cocktails and background music going into the evening, and people sat around tables chatting and doing that, rather than feeling that pressure of you have to have music and you have to have dancing.
Yeah.
Because it's a Wednesday night.
Okay. Yeah.
And I do feel that we're starting to see the effects of change, I think, across our industry.
Yes, I do think so. And I think, there are people out there who are saying like 2025, is it?
Yes, next year, yeah.
It's going to be difficult to book, and I think a lot of people are feeling the same thing. I've actively spoken to like wedding coordinators at venues. There are some venues just like we haven't seen a change, but equally there are some, and it's normally sort of the low to mid-range venues that are being like, oh, we're having to put offers out, or we're sort of halfway booked to what we normally are. And I think it's the high and low ends that may be struggling at this point.
Yeah.
The low ends, especially for video, because of content creators and things like that, right? If you're charging, $1,000, 1,500 quid, but they could get a content creator for 600 quid, they might still do that.
Yeah, in terms of the value, all they want is, we just want a few nice clips of our day, and they think that someone on their phone can still get, them walking down the aisle and this and that. It's a very similar. Immediately, just want to make a quick reel for their friends, and then that's as far as the value in their video goes. Yeah, you're definitely going to see that change.
But equally, with the saturation of what we do now, before pre-COVID, there wasn't that many videographers in our area. Like I say, like 2018 sort of thing, and now like there's so many. And that's great, and everyone's pushing each other up.
Yeah.
But it does mean that the people at the top now aren't standing out as much.
Yeah.
Like as in at the top, I mean the people charging like the 10 grand and whatever.
Yeah.
Their work isn't standing out as much as it used to, because now like there's the markets.
But the gaps are being filled, aren't they? That's it. If there's more people in it as well, you're always going to get some people that rise through that really quickly, or just by that kind of that base level of good before is not enough to make you full time anymore, because there's so many other people that are coming through and quite quickly are good, which I think is good for the industry, because it will force people to get better. But at the same time, if you've been used to working in a certain way and had enough work for the year, I think we are all going to have to just work a little bit harder, or find our niches a little bit better in order to stay.
It's interesting to see. Like I'm always the first person to blame myself if I don't get an inquiry for a month or something. I'll be like, what do I need to change my branding? How much more do I need to post on Instagram? What do I need to put out an advert? Yada yada. But like there is an element of there's something. There's a change in the industry right now. We just need to sort of ride the wave and see what this change actually means. And I think that the new year will see an increase. I think from January onwards, I think 2025 is going to start to look better and fresher for people.
I really hope so. I think at the moment, again, like we've said earlier, is I think that some people are more cautious in booking, especially if there's venues that they're doing offers. What's the advantage of booking so early? If then you think, that date might still be free with them, because dates aren't flying out the door at venues now. It's not like you go and do a viewing on the Sunday and they go, well, if you come back next Sunday to book it, it won't be here.
Sunday's gone.
It's there's that rush demand's not there anymore. It gives kind of, again, like we said, the power back to the buyer, doesn't it? Again, rather than us as sellers, you can't. And I think we're just going to have to adapt to that. I think, or maybe just be more adaptable. In general, you can't afford to sit there and be kind of a stubborn, because this is what I do. If you don't like it, tough. You're going to have to be more willing, I think, or to have flexibility in what you offer. 100%. While still getting what you need out of it, whilst being able to service the clients that want to book you. That's, I think, which is weird. I think that was somewhere that we weren't really intended to go with this episode.
It
was just kind of
that's been on my mind though a lot. And I messaged Russell Kent about it actually, and I was like, what do you think? And he was like, I think like next year I think things will start to improve. But he said, I think a lot of people have been in the same sort of situation. It's interesting to hear it from someone's perspective, and
it's nice to see it from people from all different levels of our industry as well. I think it's not purely that loads of people have bumped their prices up and there's too many people charging too much and there's the demand's not at that end of the market, because people I think are feeling it. I've spoken to venues, hairstylists, florists, and people that kind of do work through kind of a whole range of kind of markets in our industry, and everyone is finding things uncertain, or finding different levels of tough. So it's interesting to say. But anyway, back to kind of thing, more sort of catch up things. Obviously, most of our last episode was talking about you planning your kind of thoughts pre-Como and the exciting nature of going to a destination wedding. So now that you've done it, you've made it back from Italy in one piece. I'm really excited to know how you found the destination experience.
So I remember listening back to the last episode, because I think the episode where we were talking about how it was planning to go to Como and everything came out after I'd already been.
I think you were there when it came out, I think.
Was that?
Or maybe you just come back. I think you just come back, because I think when we posted out the episode, I posted the reel. I was like, here's the episodes live, and here's the reel that you made whilst you were there. So maybe that's good. So that's why that kind of came up.
Just come back. And I feel like listening to it back, I was relatively negative about it coming up, because it felt like something in the middle of wedding season that was taking me away from the flow, and also it was a lot more expensive than I'd expected it to be as well.
But also a lot more planning, I think. If you look back to that episode, having to buy new equipment, navigate a change of hotel, a change of travel, all of that stuff. So I think at that time you'd done all of the most tedious parts of it, but you hadn't got the fun bit at the end.
That's it. And I was deep into all of that, and yes, like it was more expensive than I was hoping. The Airbnb alone was like 600 quid for like the 3 nights or something like that. And then you got flights.
It's not Purple Palace money, is it?
No, and then you got flights in the middle of the school holidays. Then you've got like the fact that you can't just get, you got to get a train or hire out a car or whatever. And it was quite intense planning that particular thing. But I'm under no illusion. I'm definitely lucky to have filmed a wedding in Como, and like I was definitely excited to do it.
And a Villa Cipressi as well,
which is quite a big and very nice hotel. So how it went, I really, really enjoyed the experience. The day before, we sort of went on a boat ride and did like a little walk around the town and things like that, because we were staying literally where we stayed ended up being across the road from the hotel.
Nice.
So we literally came out of our gate and the hotel was right in front, which is really good. So we had a really good place to stay. We walked around Villa Cipressi as well, like bought a ticket to their gardens and had a look around and to scope out the area essentially. So luckily they had a wedding there the day before, so we already saw it set up for the ceremony and like everything how it was going to be. So that was really cool to be able to do all of that, and obviously like the extra anxiety of like the pressure, not that the couple would put on me, but that I put on myself as it being a destination wedding, me wanting to do it really well at the best of my ability. Like it was nice to go to I wouldn't do it for a UK wedding because like it's just almost a flow if it's a new venue, but because it's a new venue and it was abroad, I felt like I kind of had to go.
Also, that's what you were there for. You'd flown out to shoot that wedding at that place, and since it's just across the road from you, it seemed, what's the point in, if you lived opposite a venue and you had a wedding then you hadn't been there, the chances are you probably might get up one morning and just go for a wander around the gardens.
We also went on a little boat ride the night before as well, the evening before. There's a little like sort of boat tour company there, and ironically the guy who took us on the boat ride ended up being the guy who took the couple on the boat ride the next day, so I already knew him like well enough to be like, oh mate, can you just take them out while I get the drone up for a second on their own and then come back? And he was like, yeah, it's all good. Like he barely speak English, but like he knew what I was getting at, so that worked really well. Overall, like when I arrived, it felt like nothing I'd done before. It felt like a whole new job. But as soon as I got my camera out and started filming prep, it just went straight into sort of wedding routine mode. And that was quite good, I think. It, like something just clicked. Like in the morning of the wedding, sort of turned up like, we go, right, we can do this. Like it's all kind of new to us, but we can do it. And then literally like Brad sat getting her makeup done, someone sat there getting her hair done, and you kind of like something clicks and you're like, okay, prep mode.
I think that's exactly how much I felt in the lead up, because I hadn't done one before. When I went to Malta last year, it was very much like, this is a big thing, it's a big difference. But I remember just walking through the door to prep and the same things happened that always happened, and I was like, you're just doing your job. You're just doing it in a different venue. It happens to be in a different country. And although but I think it was a lead up and say the prestige or the level of different that I'd felt it myself. And I think if you did go back and do more, I wouldn't feel that same kind of heightened level of, it needs to be really good. I have to. It's like you just do your job the same as you always do. and you go because you know you can do that job in the UK really well, and it's that then especially when it's your first destination job, all they've seen is your work in the UK, and they've loved it enough to put you on a plane and bring you here to do this.
If you see my work from a barn and want me to go and film at Villa Cipressi, then clearly you like the work and not like what some sort of like exaggerated version of it that you feel like you've got to produce because it's destination. But I left the day at the end feeling like I'd done everything that I possibly could, and really happy with what I'd filmed. The vibe of the day was great, obviously, like because they're all on holiday, like you don't get that like obviously it was on Saturday anyway, but like everyone's there for that. And so like all the guests were lively, people got suitably drunk. It was a little bit hot, so that definitely I wouldn't say killed it, but it definitely brought the energy down a little bit.
Yeah, because I think it's worth saying, isn't it? Obviously, I don't know if we covered it in the last episode that most destination weddings, or definitely the wedding that I did, and from people that I've chatted to that do a lot, is that because of the heat in summer in Europe, most destination weddings happen much later in the day.
Yeah.
That you would expect to have a ceremony around 4:30, 5 p.m. and then the meal to go through sunset, and then the dancing in the evening. Where I think I'm right in saying that your wedding almost followed like a UK schedule, didn't it? It was still like a 1 p.m. ceremony.
12:30.
So literally the hottest part of the day in a hot place.
Yeah.
You were outside filming a wedding, so it was almost like those odd weekends here where you get caught out with an absolute scorcher.
Yeah,
it was that kind of schedule,
and that definitely brought some energy down and made it a little bit harder throughout the day for not just us but like the guests. I feel like the guests were more tired towards the end of the day because it had been 30 odd degrees, and they when it come to reception drinks, they had the saxophonist going, music playing, there was like all the food you could possibly eat because it's an Italian wedding, everything you can drink, but all the guests were sort of just sat in like lounging in sofas looking like really hot.
They probably need water because they're in like a guy in a suit jacket who's like dehydrating, and as much as the loveliest the Prosecco does, all it does is make you feel more drunk because you're not. It's
actually 1 p.m. and like where here you'd get like everyone stood up enjoying their reception drinks, and everyone literally found the nearest chair and sat down and like just tried to chill out, and like that obviously is not ideal. But I think it perhaps the wedding planner just sort of said like we don't really do weddings this early, and this is kind of why, because you can see how the effect it's having, and people are getting a bit tired early on. But overall, like the vibe did continue throughout the day. Obviously, everyone appreciated like the views, and like the one thing I would say is that there was quite a lot of couple shooting, which I'm not used to, and I don't know whether this is normal for every destination wedding, but I'd say 40-minute boat ride, 20 minutes before the boat ride, and then probably half an hour to an hour afterwards. So an hour and a half to 2 hours of shooting just couples.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. And I had Kate there with me, so I had trust that someone was getting candids and things like that.
Yeah.
But I still, there was points where I was like, I'm done. Do I just leave?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to, in case they go somewhere really cool.
Yeah.
And I miss out on this. And I've come here like to film all of this, and I'm going to miss out on some sick location.
Yeah, and you would assume as well that the couple were happy to be out that long.
Yeah.
Because I guess if they've come somewhere as stunning as Como, they want to make sure that they get the best photos of them in all of the sites around. Yeah. And I do wonder if maybe going forward, or that's how I think when I did like my one last year, is the fact that I did like a pre-shoot with them the day before, but in like another cool part of the island that was further away. So on the day, we only had to kind of hit one spot. And I know they weren't in their wedding outfits then, they still felt they got photos at that point, rather than we need to do the boat, we need to do the gates, we need to do this, we need to do everything in that normal window that you would do in 20 minutes on a wedding day.
And perhaps that's the answer, but then that's maybe the answer for the weddings that start at 4 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas they had that 12:30 ceremony, so they could afford to take the 2 hours out of the day, I guess. But for me, like I've always wanted a little bit more time because of my style. I get couples that are a bit more like, oh, we don't not too bothered about that.
Yeah.
And so I've mentioned to you before, like, I wish I had couples that were a little bit more bothered about the couple stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously they were bothered about it. I do feel like maybe they started to get tired towards the end, and I don't know, because I'm not generally involved in those sort of conversations in a pre-wedding call because I focus on other things. I don't know whether, because the photographer said that they had a list of shots and she was just literally just getting the list that they wanted, but they didn't seem like they wanted to go any further with it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But I imagine it's hard, isn't it? It's not only the education of, I imagine, and I found this with group lists or shot lists from couples in general, is that if you're really general and just go, give me a shot of everything that's important to you, that couple, for the most chance, haven't been married before, only been married once. And if you just give them a general instruction like that, you will get a shot list. I want a shot of me walking down the aisle with Dad. I want a shot of my cake. I want a shot of my shoes. And most of the stuff is stuff that you would get anyway.
Yeah.
But because you haven't given them any direction in that, and like what you want, or that education, if someone hands you a list of 25 group shots in a final questionnaire, when you jump on that final meeting, the education point is, I don't mind doing the 25 groups, but that's an hour's worth of group photos. And normally at that point, the couple go, I'll spend an hour doing that. And they'll easily cut 12 off of it.
Yeah.
Where maybe if that photographer didn't, and again, I don't know the photographer, I didn't communicate, but if she just went, yeah, cool, I'd love to go to all these places.
Yeah.
And knew in her own mind, well, that's 2 hours.
I think that was definitely the photographer's style, was the couple stuff, judging by the Instagram anyway.
Like if she'd turned back to the couple and said, yes, I can hit every one of these for you and make stunning pictures in all of them, but you do realise that this means 2 hours away from your guests, maybe the couple would have gone, okay, we'll bin off those two and get us back in an hour and a half. You don't know, do you? And that's it.
I didn't get to eat their main course. It's so sad. Like, but at the same time, if that's what they wanted, then fair play. Like, I just don't know because I wasn't involved in those conversations.
And I think these are maybe, as I get older in this job, or you do things, is that you kind of realise as well is that, you know, what we make has incredible longevity.
Yeah.
That what the couple want now, because social media is cool, or they're young, or they want to post to impress their friends that they took all their guests to Lake Como, when they look back in 20 years' time, are they going to have missed?
Yeah.
Would they do things differently? And you can't put like our experience and kind of wiseness into a young couple excited to go to somewhere so beautiful, whilst they look young and amazing, to want to soak up those awesome couple portraits of themselves. But I kind of think, well, you've made a lot of your closest friends and family travel a long way to watch you get married. Yeah. And then you've not spent any time with them because you've been out on a boat without doing this.
This is what I think is, because I follow her on Instagram. By the way, they're the friendliest, most amazing couple. I absolutely loved spending the day with them. Like, it was really cool. Genuinely really nice people. And I follow the bride on Instagram. And so they pretty much had the week out there with their guests. It looked like it.
Okay.
So they'd spent all the time building up to it with their guests. So maybe on the day,
they weren't fast because they'd spent the time on other days. Okay, that makes sense.
What I think is seeing their party from the day before, where they all went on a massive boat, got drunk, they're all dressed in white and went on the boat and got drunk. I feel like I should have been there. Yeah. Because when I got back to after the couple shoot to Kate and was like, how's the candidates going? She was like, all the guests have been sat around the table playing cards.
Because they'd exhausted their party.
But the night before, or the day before.
So maybe that was maybe an error in what the couple booked you for. That they could have booked you for, say, 2 hours of the boat party.
I would have loved to do it.
And then you almost could have taken a break in the middle of the wedding day, done the ceremony, gone back to your Airbnb, freshened up, stayed out the sun, had a siesta,
got some,
and then come back for the speeches.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe that there's a reason that, I guess, the normal thing, I don't really know, but a lot of people say, there's a pre-wedding dinner the night before where everyone has a good time, or you go out on the boat the day before, and then on the day of the wedding you don't really start till 4 p.m. that kind of thing. Instead, it was like the pre-wedding party did happen, we didn't capture it, and then obviously the day was a bit longer, so you had more time for that kind of stuff. But I'm not complaining. It sounds like I'm complaining. I'm just interested in the dynamics.
I think that's it, isn't it? Kind of, you look at it kind of as an outsider looking in, as a purely kind of social experiment, or how they chose to book you for what you made, and then you looking at it in hindsight now saying, yes, it's a beautiful place, but maybe if I'd have done X, Y, and Z, I maybe could have captured more of that whole experience. Yeah. As not looking at the wedding as purely the day itself, that they put their dress on and said their vows. That if you look at the 5 days they were out there as a whole, again, I was going, well, they missed all the time with their family because they were having portraits done. But like you said, they'd spent the 2 days before and the 2 days after doing nothing but eating pizza, drinking wine, and hanging out with their families. They probably were ready to have that time away. So it's seeing it, isn't it, as a whole thing rather than just the day that you were booked for.
They literally took hired boats, maybe 5 or 6 hired boats out where they get to drive them themselves, and took them all out into the middle of the lake and were diving in and stuff like that. Yeah. And I was like, why am I not filming this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead,
which is much more your style as well.
Yeah. Instead, Kate's there filming people playing cards during. But then that's what it is. And do you know what? I had a great time, and after going into it thinking, how many of these do I realistically want to do? I definitely would still do. I still have the same mentality, but now it's a bit more positive in the fact that I'd still do 4 or 5 a year probably of destination weddings if they came in. I end up making a teaser from it, which you've seen, and is pinned at the top of my Instagram if you want to see
Which
it.
looks amazing, by the way. It did.
Yeah.
Like, I think for all of the things you said about the couple shots and the sparklers during the cake cut, it had all of those high moments and kind of, and the glam of the location.
It's all of those
that
things
you would
that
expect,
and your dream, like, for my dream, I want to, dream wedding, I want to film drone shots of Lake Como, and then I want to film cold sparks going off while someone pours champagne into the other person's mouth. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of that stuff that you see.
Yeah, the stuff that you see other people making on Instagram, and you go, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
And
although, like, I'm very adamant that, like, for me, it's all about the little moments, and like you say, the stuff that's happening when nothing's happening.
Yeah.
All of that is like sort of goals when you're filming something. So to put together a teaser, which it took me a bit more thought than it probably normally would to post it. I said to Kate, I love this, what I've made, but it's nothing like anything I make for other people. So do you think people are going to start either expecting that or worrying that I'm going to make that for them now?
But again, I think people should be level-headed enough to know that in order for you to film that, or the crux of anything, you can only film what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And if their day was built around cold sparklers and epic views, and that's kind of what has to be in the film, isn't it? Where if you go, the days that you have over here maybe are built on heartfelt speeches, reveals, first looks, those things. You've got time to seek out those moments, haven't you? But you would, be foolish, is probably the best word to use, that if whilst the cold sparklers are going off and they're pouring champagnes into each other's mouth, if you've got your back to them and you're photographing the tear rolling down Nan's eye as she looks on at her grandson having this moment, because it's not there, is it?
No.
You're going to photograph the shiny thing, aren't you? And even for someone who's just hard documentary as me, there's still those moments when those things happen that you go, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Or you've seen it, and it's really easy to go, like, you can need to go, that's maybe not a bit of me once you've done it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That you almost have to have that experience. Like, I think people that have never done a destination can't sit there and go, I've never do a destination. Well, I don't see the point. It's like, go, find out it's not for you, and then decide.
Yeah.
Or go, love it, and do more. Or I think you've got to experience those things to know whether they're for you or not.
But I loved it. I think, there's a reason my style is what it is, I think.
Yeah.
And that's because I don't get weddings like that often. I think if all of my weddings were like that, my style would definitely change more to suit that. And I would want, because when I made that trailer or that teaser, I was kind of like, it's got to be cool, Yeah. I think that's probably the word that came to mind. Like, you've got to look at that and think, that looks sick. Whereas normally when I'm making trailers for people, I don't want it to look sick. I want it to look nice.
Yeah.
Because that's how the wedding was.
Because, or it's having that, and maybe that's something that you could do. Like, if you could add into your questionnaire, it's like, if you could say to your couple, if you want, what video do you want me to describe me the video you want me to make in one word?
Yeah.
And if they say heartfelt, you know what you're pulling on.
Yeah.
Where if they say epic or sick, you know that what to look for.
Yeah.
And I know, and I've heard this from other photographers where they say to couples, maybe, I'm going to get everything for you, but what is the one thing which is most important to you about this wedding? Or if your house was on fire, what would the moment be that you would grab?
Yeah.
And it's maybe having that level, isn't it? It's because I think
you can tell about that. What
and we talk a lot about style, I think, and stuff, and and how you cater towards that. But I think that anybody's style is also multifaceted. I still looked at that film and knew that it was a Spice Wedding film.
Okay.
It had the way it was graded, the way it was shot, the way it looked. Yeah. Although the content of it was quite different to some of the films, for weddings that we've worked together or whatever. But it still had an element. It still looked like a Spice Wedding film, albeit a Lake Como sparklers and champagne version of a film that you make. Like, you could tell it came from your vision.
It's my vision, so absolutely loved it. I think all the footage is incredible. I'm putting together the highlights film slowly as I go along, and I'm looking forward to getting that out, because I like the whole. I've said to you, like, my couple are people that are our age but bougie. Do you know what I mean? And like, maybe they haven't got all the money in the world, but they're going to spend it on things that they like want to show off a little.
But I think, again, probably if you'd had the budget though, you probably would have had that wedding.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the easy way to say it. Exactly you'd have had I know you will have to know that you would have had the cold sparklers, and you would have had that, and that if you'd have had that level of wealth at that time to go, this is what we want to do, that is something that you would have done. So I think that's why that maybe appeals to you more, because there's elements of you in that,
saw
isn't
us
there?
in what they were doing.
And I think you need to kind of identify, don't you, on whatever level it is, whether you kind of look at them in a more elevated, that's kind of who I want to be thing, or these are definitely my people, we can be friends situation.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be that element to whoever you work with.
Well, I think as much as like I've gone through this year thinking, you know, and knowing that everyone I'm filming is my kind of couple.
Yeah.
It's also making that teaser has changed my opinion on what I'm showing of what I'm making.
Okay.
I think. So just after that teaser, I edited a trailer from a wedding in Kent, and it was a wedding started at Cathedral, and then it was off to a gardens with like a really nice house and a marquee, and the bride from that wedding is the first person on the call. We said that, you know, why did you book us? And she goes, I like that your films are cinematic, energetic cinematic. And I was like, I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
And she was the first. She's the person that coined that. So I was like, I've got to make something for her which shows that. yeah, basically. And so I made this trailer, like a minute to a minute and a half, and I was like, I don't like trailers as it is. Like when I watch trailers on Instagram, I think they're pretty like.
For what reason do you not like them though?
They don't tell the story enough because they're too short.
Okay.
And often they're quite just like, if you don't know the couple, do you really want to watch the trailer?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I get that, yeah.
They're too short to show any real story. So if I've got like this couple have this story, I really want to tell that. I can't put that in a minute. But at the same time, I can't even show. I don't know it.
But I guess, but then you only see that from an element of because you do film long days, you know the whole story.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can put into a trailer, isn't there? But do you feel like that with trailers with movies though? Like, what's the point of a trailer for a movie? To make you want to see the full film.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I guess if you make a trailer for a couple,
but that's not the case. Yeah, I suppose for the couple it is.
It is. But you're only showing it on socials so that you can attract more couples to book you. But if you're making that, maybe you're looking at the audience of the trailer wrong. Are you making it to put on your socials, or are you making it to trail the long film for the couple?
Yeah, maybe. I just think it. Well, I don't need the couple to want to watch their longer film because they already.
Well, they should do because it's them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where I see weddings as a story, putting that story into a minute and like cutting it down and just having. Because then you've got to think what shots you, but I've got a minute. Am I going to put a shot of someone, I don't know, just stood with champagne laughing, or am I going to put that amazing sunset in?
Yeah.
And then you end up with more of the stuff that doesn't mean as much, but probably looks sick, and less of the stuff that like means a lot. Like there's less of like Nan hugging because it's a trailer. I'm putting like the good stuff they want to show their friends.
But again, I think it depends who you're making the trailer for.
Yeah.
If you're making the trailer for your Instagram, where nobody's going to sit and watch the long film, then you put the cooler stuff in it.
Yeah.
You put the fireworks, you put the sunset, you put the big hitters in it, the confetti, the colour.
Yeah.
You look at that and people say, well, if that's a whistle-stop journey through the day that I'm having, I want that day.
Yeah.
Where if you're using it to to give you a kind of cliffhanger trailer story for the couple...
Maybe that's it. Maybe because
you need to make that trailer then that has Nan hugging in it, and then the bit where you get most of the way through the speech where it goes, you know, Emma, you look, and it stops, and you want to know what they say next. And it's like coming soon, 6 weeks time, you're gonna get your full movie, and they're left on that, and they know what it was because it was said on the day. But it gives you that kind of, it leaves them on that kind of note, doesn't it? Where if you were a couple watching that one, you go, oh, I'm not gonna watch it anyway. Scroll like.
See, a trailer for me, like I think you're saying what a trailer should be, but a trailer for me is their Instagram edit that they can show their friends, and that you sort of put on Instagram as well. Yeah. So anyway,
to show off the people that weren't there how cool it was that they missed out.
I thought this isn't quite right. So I made I don't know, it was like 15 to 30 second like reel from their day. They were massively into 1975, so I put 1975 into Music Bed and got this song. And it didn't sound much like them, but it had the same vibe and the same sort of reason, same sort of feeling. And then I put it into, put the vicar at the front saying, I now pronounce you husband and wife in Italian, because I thought that was pretty cool. And then it just kicked off into all the energetic bits. And I made this 15 to 30 second teaser, post that on Instagram. Bride absolutely loved it, went crazy.
Because it was high energy cinematic.
And it had all those bits in it. I loved it because it was coming straight off the back of the Como teaser that I'd made. Yeah. It kept the same vibe going. I didn't want to just then upload a romantic video or whatever. then I sent them the trailer and I got a response back, which was pretty much like, we absolutely love this trailer. It's exactly what we were hoping for. We'd actually quite like the teaser as a file so we can post on our own Instagram, please. So they actually prefer, like, I don't know if they preferred, but they're like, we love the trailer. Yeah. Can we post the teaser on Instagram?
But don't you think, well, I'm sure we had this conversation about Instagram in an episode quite a while ago, and you summed it up really well in that almost that, like, there's photos that I've probably taken in a gallery and bits of your film. There's bits that people want to share on their Instagram, and people that they don't. Yeah. Like, I would imagine, like, if I have a bride that cries during the speeches, she will not post the picture of her, like, bug-eyed and tears rolling down her face, because it's not very attractive. It's not very Instagram.
No.
But she'll love the photo of her hugging down with the tears rolling down her face. But she'll post the photo of her chucking her champagne in the air and at the sunset, because it's almost, you're feeding the machine, aren't you? And unfortunately, as much as we do it to attract couples want to do that as well. It's like, Instagram should be the highlight reel of your life.
You want people to see you.
Yeah. How do you want people to see you? You know, those people that you used to go to school with that thought you were a loser, and now you want to make out that you have a really cool life. You're not going to post a picture of you ugly crying on your wedding day, are you? You're going to post a picture of you, like, say, at sunset, like, spinning around with your dress going everywhere. And so maybe that's the answer. Maybe you need to do a teaser and a trailer, and the trailer is the one which appeals to the audience of the couple, and the teaser is the one that appeals, that they want to put on their Instagram to make them look like a much cooler version of themselves. Yeah,
exactly. I feel like teasers are cool going forwards. I feel like they more match my style, even though isn't as energetic as it used to be. I feel like if I'm getting those weddings, I'm really going to lean into it now. So, and do that kind of, like, focus on that more for, like, for the Instagram side of things.
Yeah.
So,
but I think also as well, it's that social media is getting to a point now where, because there's such a wealth of content on there, is that people don't engage in it in the same way. That if you posted something super sad, I don't think people would go, oh, I'm not in the mood to watch this, and we just scroll on. Yeah. They wouldn't go, oh, I'll save it for later and watch it when I do want to watch something sad.
Yeah.
You need to be like boom, 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 doesn't it? And
you can get away with a bit more as well. Like, I feel like the reason that I don't watch other people's trailers on Instagram is because you scroll, you see, a venue shot from the drone, and someone getting their makeup done, and then it's like, boring, exactly exactly. Whereas I think with a reel or a teaser, you can sort of put any shot to start off with, and then just, like, you can go through the day in any kind of order.
And it is really fascinating to watch how it plays out, especially from, working where you only film in horizontal. So you've either got to chop your footage up and only show a portion of it, or somehow find a way where you can make a vertical based video to go with it. And I've seen these, like, cool reels where you got, like, a magic arm with their phone recording portrait while they're recording landscape or whatever, where I've definitely found that as years have gone on now, I'll actively rock the landscape portrait feel. Like, if I'm taking a detail shot, I'll get a landscape version. I'll try and get a portrait option as well, because I know it works better on Instagram. Couple don't care how they see it. It's the same freaking photo of their shoes and their dress and their flowers or whatever. Or if you're doing a couple shot, you'll get one with the guests as they're walking towards you, but I'll go whoop, turn it portrait, get 2 or 3 frames walking towards and go back. Some frames naturally work better in portrait, some are naturally better in landscape, but you give yourself options. I used to be almost an exclusively landscape shooter, but Instagram's made me go that way because it likes portrait content.
Yeah, don't you have to upload them all in the same aspect ratio as well if you do a carousel?
So that's it. So now, I found even this year, I was looking over that I'm now actively picking portrait frames for my previews,
so that you can do them all the same.
So if I want to post that gallery on Instagram, I know that I've got then 10. Now that Instagram has 20, it might be a different issue, but I normally deliver 12 to 15 previews. I will make sure that probably that at least 10 of them are portrait. So that I know that if a couple want to share it on Instagram, they won't chop bits out of it or do awkward crops to turn my landscapes portrait to fit them on Instagram. Because they just want to post all of them. So it's easier just to give them.
And they can now. You can post 20 up to 20 photos now, can't you?
They can just post everything in portrait if I only deliver them portrait. So they'll get the rest eventually. And it is having those, those levels of conversation, isn't it, to make that happen?
And thinking about what you're shooting on the day as well for you.
But your video's harder.
I've really struggled to think about, I need to have this so I can crop it to vertical or whatever. So I don't really do it. But if I need to, because it's Instagram, I'll just be like, I posted something recently, which was some, like, a guy singing for some speeches. And the reaction of the couple didn't work in vertical. So for that shot, I just zoomed out and then had a copy of them behind, like, blurred, because it's not the deliverable, do you know what I mean? So as long as it tells some sort of story for the Instagram, it's fine.
It is hard, isn't it? But I think maybe that's on our minds more than we think it is. Do you know? I only found that the other day when I was delivering stuff, and I was skimming through to do the previews, obviously, for the weddings that I just shot, and I was like, I am actively looking for portrait options. I know which moments I want to deliver in the previews, because again, like you said, for me, for previews, I want to give them stuff which, if there's a really nice sentimental frame in there, I will try and give it as a preview, because I know they'll love it. Yeah. But at the same time, I kind of have a pattern of what I deliver in previews. If they've got confetti, it's the best confetti shot. It's a couple of options of, and probably again for someone who's as documentary as I am, most of the previews that I deliver probably aren't that documentary. A lot of it is like, you know, whoever's walking them down the aisle, it's a couple shot, it's a detail shot. So it's, you almost try and do the most well-rounded view of that day in 10 frames that you can get. And all of those little niggly like connecting frames and story frames are for the full gallery, because they only make sense in the bigger picture. But if you bang a carousel up, people get all the information that an outsider wants to know about their wedding. It's like, how hot did the bride look in the dress? What did the venue look like? What does this look like? And it serves lots of things in a very short amount, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's your version of a trailer, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, dropping those sneak peeks is, and you think, you know, probably 5 years ago, the fact that people wouldn't do that, but now I think you do it, and that's why you want it. And I think that probably most of the weddings I've had this year now, you know, when you get the registrar stands up at the start of the ceremony to their housekeeping and say, well, the couple have asked for, you know, don't take your pictures during the ceremony, and they now say, and social media rules are, you know, can you not post any photos of this wedding on social media until the couple have? So I then know, okay, that couple are expecting previews from me, because they want to lead the charge of that social media kind of, you know, thank you, we did it. You can now post your photos. We did it. We look amazing. They wanted that with one of my photos, don't they, really? So you've got to deliver those. That immediacy is a thing now. And so I think you have to feed that machine, and it works. The best reaction from a couple is that first post, isn't it? It
is, and it has to be pretty quick as well. I was doing so well at that at the beginning of the year, and now I'm like quite far behind on that first post.
So again, even though I did that kind of like 3 and 4 days over the weekend with the commercials in between, I was still getting home and I was still doing those previews as I was backing up. So even if it meant I was later to bed, they still went out. And then, but my wedding on Wednesday, my bride posted the next day, and she's the first bride that's collaborated on a post with me.
Oh, really?
So she offered me to collaborate. She posted the previews herself. Thanks me for them, and collaborated with me. So then I didn't have to post them. So they end up on my grid. She said nice words about me in the post. So then people can see that she's posted it. And it's probably now one of the most liked things that I've put up in the meantime, because all of her friends are liking it and commenting on it and going, oh, I love these photos and that. And it's like, and I gained probably more follows off the back of her collaborating with me than I had if I'd have posted them myself and just tagged her in.
Collaborating just changed the game for me. Like, I'll collaborate with the bride and groom and the venue, and sometimes like a supplier if they've been really involved in the day sort of thing. So and it was a really, I think it's a really worthwhile thing, and it's quite an interesting thing about, say, the idea of like your trailers being our previews, and almost that you have a style, but I still feel that although the couple shoot makes up such a small percentage of my part of the day, it's still the first thing that I'll edit for a preview. Because what do you want for your preview? To go, oh, we got married. Here's a picture of us looking great in our outfits. It's not a picture of me crying while I'm hugging Nan, is it? Because you wouldn't post it. That's not the first photo that goes up.
It's really, really interesting. It is. I think that's, I think it's kind of a well-rounded thing to see out. Like I say, the fact that you did the thing at Como and kind of the epicness of that as kind of, you've learned something from that experience, as well as having a great experience of the destination. It's kind of the bigger lesson, isn't it?
Coming from it, I'm like, oh, actually, I need to start doing this more. And like, after having produced that video, and really bloody enjoyed producing it, and then producing it for my next couple, and then them really liking it as well. I'm thinking, okay, people want this. Maybe they want this, and not what just the bog standard trailer that starts with the makeup shot and everything. So, and
I said, you had your wedding anniversary kind of, a few days ago, that, when you've been married for 3 years, or I've been married for 10 years this year, it's kind of losing sight, isn't it, now, of that, like, well, what do brides want? Or trying to remember how you felt in those shoes to go, well, I know what I wanted when I was sat there waiting for those previews from my photographer. I know I wanted to post a picture from that moment, because I remember it literally only happened yesterday. And kind of knowing what you expect. And it's having that whilst you are at this end of the season and feeling like that, still trying to have that in the back of your mind to go, well, what are my couple really hoping is going to be in this email that they open?
We don't watch our trailer now, because obviously the trailer's pointless now, because we've got our full film, so we don't watch the trailer. So it
only serves its purpose for that
at the time. Stopgap. It's a single serving thing, but
I think that's a really good lesson, and I hope there's some really good points in there, which I think probably leads us to probably one of the closing points of this episode before it becomes a really, really long one, is that if you want more lessons like that,
we have a workshop.
Coming up. We do, and it's coming around. Like we've announced it a couple of episodes ago now, didn't we? And we've sold some tickets, and there are still some spaces left. So you know, if you are kind of winding your season down, that the workshop is on Tuesday, the 16th of November. 19th. Oh, it's the wrong way around, isn't it? I was so good. I was like going to roll off the tongue. It is the 19th. You're right. Tuesday, the 19th of November. So hopefully most people would have been done with their season by then. Hopefully they've got a raft of all this amazing content that they've made over the course of the summer, and then want to maybe repackage the way that you're going to brand yourself for next year, or the way that you want to market yourself for that crazy whirlwind of what 2025 is going to bring. And we've got some ideas which are probably much more elaborate and much more in-depth than that we can go into on the pod. And so we are going to impart those upon you at the workshop.
Yes, it's a workshop we've done before. So if you've been to the one before, then it's going to be more of the same, but it's going to be a more well-rounded version, based on things we've learned from that one as well. It is going to be all about branding. So we go into copy, colors, logo. We go really deep into the business side. Obviously, we're a photo and video podcast, so we want to do something that relates more to pertains more to the business side. And I think like branding and getting your website right and your tone right and targeting your ideal couple is really something that we talk about quite a lot.
Yes.
And I think like, you know, we're sort of, it's something that we're both quite good at in terms of the couples that we get and what we want to shoot. So we'll go through it very much into detail about the branding side of things. And then the second half of the day is focused more on website marketing. And in that we'll sort of do a review of your website.
Yeah, like a live review. Yeah. In front of everybody.
So if you submit your website, look, what we did last time is, we basically went through, and it will be in front of everybody else, but I think it's nice to have that open conversation with other people as well. So it's not just us saying, do this, do that. And you've got other people chiming in and saying, oh, maybe they don't need to do it. Or maybe you could do it this way.
Yeah, it is. And I think very much we don't say that we have all the answers, but I think, from the successes that we've had, even since we've been running the pod and the changes, you've built an entirely new website and mine's been overhauled several times since then. I think and also in November, that is a really ideal time that you could come to the workshop. You could make that a real actionable thing that you could get done then, so that once we do roll into January and that booking does pick up, you have got something which is much more singing about where you want to be going forward to book in those couples for the next couple of years.
Yes, so branding and marketing workshop, 19th of November at the Closey Club in Guildford. And tickets will be available for that down in the description. Yeah,
the link will be in there. So hop on over to that page and grab your tickets, because hopefully by the time that we record our next episode, those last few tickets will be sold.
Yes, last time they sold out very, very quickly, so we're expecting them to.
Obviously, last time we announced it and then did the workshop in a much tighter turnaround. So I think because it is so far in the future, people have been a little bit slower in picking up those last numbers, but we are expecting it to sell out. So don't hang about.
Sweet. Well, that's been it from us. It's been a nice long one, but it's been good to catch up. And
we hope you're having your season are going just as well as ours, or you've taken some use away from that, or can maybe sympathise with some of the things that we've said.
If you're getting the fatigue, don't think that you're just like first world problems. It's just one of those things. It just happens, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you love your job any less. It's okay to be tired. It's been a long summer for us all, and I think the fact that the end is in sight. It doesn't mean that those jobs at the end you're just going to rush through them. But it's okay to feel that you are tired from that you've put the hours in. So again, if you've got any ideas for topics that you particularly want us to discuss, but we're highly aware that we can't carry on having a podcast into the winter of constant catch-up episodes. So if you're a guest that would like to come on the podcast, send us a message, tell us what you'd like to talk about. If there's someone you'd like us to try and get on the podcast, nominate somebody.
I've had a few requests, so
so I'm excited to kind of now once our seasons do start to wind down, to start to get some more guest episodes in the can and more kind of dive into some more topics. Much beyond catch-ups.
I think we've got a lot of topics to cover, but it's just the fact that we've had to record them so far apart that catch-ups just seem like the right thing to do.
And also that much has happened to us. And much learnable stuff has happened that it's definitely worth not just brushing over that. So hopefully you guys feel the same.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.
See you in the next one.